Code Orange's Forever. Code Orange, formerly known as Code Orange Kids. And I think before that they were the Code Orange Kids. So, with every passing year they lose a word on their name. So I'm waiting for the day that they'll just be Code. And it'll be a great fucking record. Code Orange Forever, released in 2017, right after I Am King. I believe it was on Roadrunner Records.
Yeah, through Roadrunner Records.
Yeah, it was through Roadrunner Records. This album, it's crazy, it's brutal, it kicked my ass. But before I get into it, what I like to do here is I like to ask my guests for their initial thoughts on the record. So we'll go in the same order we did introductions. Fern, any quick, just like general thoughts on the record, just like a quick little like a basic thoughts before we go into it track by track?
Yeah, when I first heard the record, I didn't expect for it to be as heavy as it was going into it. Mind you, I listened to it back in 2017. Didn't expect it to be as heavy. Considering I Am King, it was heavy, but it was a lot more of like the noises. It was a lot more of like the drone kind of stuff going on. But as soon as this record dropped, I didn't expect it to be as metalcore as it was, with all the breakdowns and all the heaviness it has. I absolutely love this record. It's my favorite of the three that they've dropped as Code Orange. It's not their heaviest, but it's my favorite out of the three, and it's absolutely wonderful to listen to.
All right, dope. Patrick, initial thoughts on Code Orange's Forever?
I never had really listened to the record like when it had first come out. Like I had heard about it, like reading through music reviews and stuff. But last night, yesterday when I talked to Frank and he told me about joining the pod for this, I listened to it about like 5 or 6 times, and I loved how fun it was. I loved how heavy it was. It was nice and fast, but it still had like kind of like a little bit of an industrial feel. Mm-hmm. And watching the music videos, awesome visuals too. So it works out really great, and I can easily see why this band got so popular and why they were able to have like the opportunities that they've had like leading up to this point.
Yeah, the opportunities, I hope that's an allusion to them becoming WWE's favorite band. They've been featured on WWE events, which is dope, and exactly. They played like Bray Wyatt's new theme song, which is dope.
It is very dope.
Yeah. So we went around, so I'm going to go over my quick initial thoughts on the album. Like I said a little bit, it's a brutal album. I listened to a lot of hardcore, a lot of Early Ceremonies, possibly one of my favorite like bands. I love listening to like Power Trip and stuff like that. So I thought I had a pretty good stamina for listening to heavy music. Like I thought I was kind of like one of those people that could just sit through an entire record. And this record is 38 minutes long, and it absolutely kicked my ass. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it sure wasn't what I got. I was expecting it to be heavy, but I didn't expect it to be so overwhelmingly heavy. And it's not just so much in the instrumentals, but the atmosphere of the record, like everything about it is just so heavy and so dense that it is a pretty punishing listen at first, but it's definitely rewarding. Like you end up like once you make it out the other side, you're like, oh shit, that was great. But it's definitely a great album if you want to show someone that metalcore is alive and well, and metalcore wasn't just like the Warped Tour bands from like like 2007 or whatever. Like it's not just that. It's grown beyond that, and it's on the come up, isn't it? Like metalcore is coming back. I mentioned earlier, Knocked Loose, Code Orange. There's a lot of bands that are doing a lot for the acclaim of the genre. But before we talk about the genre as a whole, let's talk about this record. So opening track, Forever. Fern, your thoughts on this song?
For an opening song, it's a great opening song. I mean, it kind of tells you what this album is going to have, what this album is about. The video that they dropped along with Forever, it just goes so well visually with what the music has to offer. Like it's I didn't expect it to start out with such a heavy breakdown and to end with an even heavier one after the whole call out Code Orange is forever.
Yeah.
Like you kind of know what you're getting into with the whole record. For the most part, you know what you're getting into with this record because there are a few songs later on that do change, but for the most part, you know what you're going to get into and the kind of experience you're going to have just off this first track alone.
Yeah, I definitely do agree. It is a great tone setter for the album. Patrick, thoughts on this track?
It is perfect for an opening track because that's exactly what you're supposed to do whenever you put out an album. Like, you don't want something that's too mellow that's just going to be like, okay, well, what am I waiting for? Like, it starts right from the bat, like quick punch and, riff, breakdown. And like, like Fern said, the visuals that they had with the video, like so spot on, like you feel that aggression from them. And, it's great. And I can also see why they put it as, video for the song and the title track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I do think it is a great tone setter. It is a great opening track to the record. It pulls no punches. It lets you know right off the bat, this is what you're getting yourself into. It is going to be a heavy fucking album. It's definitely a tone setter, and it does give you that idea of like, this is not going to be an easy ride. It's like, how I forgot what story it was, but it has like that doorway to hell, and it says like, abandon all hope, ye who enter here, or something like that. Like, this song is that sign for the record. Like, you're in for a tough time if you walk in. And
open the doors, and here we go.
Exactly, and I'm glad I did, because you know what, it is a dope album. I love, like Fern said, ending on a heavier breakdown. Like, you don't think this song could get heavier than it's been,
and it does.
But then it does. Like, there's like that brief moment where you breathe for a second. You're like, oh shit, and then it just hits you again. Great. I loved it. It was a great setup. So, any other thoughts on this song before we move on to the next track?
Setting the tone, I will say I love the fact that it also introduces some of Reba Meyer's like clean vocals in some parts of the song to let you know, like, we're not just a metalcore band. We're not just gonna give you like just flat out aggression. There is gonna be a few more layers to this, and the fact that they add Reba Meyer's in there just makes it so much better.
Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Reba Meyer's vocals when we get there. But yes, that is great that they introduced some of her clean vocals. Like, right off the bat, like I said, it leaves you no surprises. It's telling you, like, here's a little bit of everything you're going to get throughout this record. And I appreciate that a lot. So track number 2, we have Kill the Creator. So with a name like that, this has to be a banger, right?
Yeah.
Fern, thoughts?
So my thoughts on it is, it's one of the songs that not only is it still going off of like what Forever, the first track introduced, like it starts out heavy as can be, like they just have like no stops at all. But I love the fact that at some point, I think it's like about maybe 45 seconds in, they change it up and they give you this like electronic, like industrial kind of like sound in there. And it makes the album more theatrical in a sense. Like, when you see the visuals for all their videos and see the stuff that they release along with the music, this song kind of gets you that same feeling. Like, there should be a video to it. Like, you can visualize a lot more with it. With that in the middle. And it just comes back in with the hardcore beat. Just gives you a circle pit rhythm. Just makes you, like, want to just throw things around.
Aggression.
Yeah.
All right. Patrick, thoughts on Forever?
So the thing that's the best about the song is the industrial parts of it, because I really like industrial music. I think it works really well, especially, with with metal. They're able to work it really nicely into the music. The name of the song, I think, to me, whenever I look at an album, I usually look at the track list before anything, and you're able to like pick out songs based on, track names, and you see it and you're just like, okay, well, this song's called this, and like for sure I know that this is gonna be a great track, just based on the name. And I saw the name, loved it, heard the track, loved it. It's a good progression into the album.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It is definitely a track. Just seeing the name does give you this sense of like it's about to go down. You know what I mean? And it starts off real heavy. I dig it. It does have that beautiful left turn into the more electronic elements. I'm normally not a big fan of industrial music, but I love how this album uses it to just really just amplify the heavy atmosphere of the album as a whole. Because even though the electronic parts, the industrial parts of the record are not per se heavy, they still carry like this heavy feel to them. Like it doesn't feel like a break. It just feels like it still feels heavy in its own way. And I like how Code Orange really plays with that idea throughout this entire record of like, and yeah, I think it speaks a lot to just the talent of the band in general to have these moments that are not necessarily musically heavy, but they still feel that way. And this song is an excellent example of that kind of song crafting, where even a moment's rest feels heavy on it, and it was one of the standout tracks for me. It was definitely one of my favorite tracks on the record, because I think it's one of the songs that used that electronic element the best, I would say. Right?
Yeah, one of my favorite things with that song too is it kind of calls back to their original album, I Am King, where they started out the whole Thinners of the Herd thing, but they actually made more sense of it and actually wrote it out lyrically on Kill the Creator, and you actually see all the lyrics and what it says, death of your bully mentality, death of your mentor hypocrisy. Like, they really go far into all of that and explain it a little bit more in the song. But at the end of it, they actually not only call back in it with the lyrics, but the music. There's a song on I Am King called Your Body Is Ready, and they use that same song outro in this one. They just didn't do all the like siren, like droning effects that they used to do on I Am King.
Yeah.
But they bring it back here with the same guitar parts. They bring it back here and still give it that heaviness. And it just kind of fades out like it does on Your Body Is Ready. Like, I love the fact that they called back to that, and they're like, all right, we're just going to tease you for a little bit. We're going to come back to the rest of the record now.
You know what? I didn't catch that, but that's because I didn't listen to I Am King very often. But hearing that makes me want to go back and listen to I Am King and get the full effect of that outro, if it is a callback to an initial song.
Go back. When I heard it, I was like, is this Your Body Is Ready? Like, I was like listening to it. I had to go back and listen to I Am King again. I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to Your Body Is Ready, listen to the whole album again, and then I'll come back to Forever.
That's fucking smart. That's a way to make sure they get those Spotify streams, man. They're like, did this sound like the old record? And you go back and listen to the old record. Just an endless cycle. Like, okay, I heard the old record. Now I got to make sure that's what the new record sounds like.
It's smart marketing, man. You put something, and people are like, okay, like I might have heard this. Let me, it works out.
Let me go back. And then you go back and you're like, now I got to make sure the new one does sound like it. And you hear the new one, you're like, I got to make sure it does sound like it. Really smart out there.
Back and forth.
Genius marketing. And then, they rake in those Spotify money because you're only listening to those two albums, trying to compare these two tracks.
Yep.
I think it really works.
Who calls them? WWE. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert for the rest of this conversation. Sorry. Next track we're getting into is Real. Thoughts on this song?
So that song is actually the first song I went to listen to when the record first released. So when it first released, I knew I'd already heard Forever, I'd already heard Bleeding in the Blur, and I knew I wanted to listen to the rest of the album after those two songs. I saw the name of that and I was like, you know what, I kind of want to listen to this. Let's see what's up with this. It sounded like it was going to be one of their more experimental tracks, just based off the name. Nope, they just hit me with straight up hardcore, hit me with straight up like
real sound.
Yeah, the heaviest they could go. And I love the song, but at the same time, it's one of the more generic like call-outs that they have, but they make it work really well. Like, it still makes me excited to hear it, because that whole call-out, you know, this is real now, motherfucker, and they go like right into it.
Ooh.
Yeah, like I didn't expect it to just hit me like that. So it still hit me pretty hard, even though it's a generic like hardcore style call-out. But I still loved every second of that song. Like, it's one of the shorter songs, definitely one of the shorter tracks on that whole album, but it's such a good listen. And go back and just, I'm going to hit repeat on this, I'm going to hit repeat on this, I'm going to hit repeat this.
Yeah, 100%.
Get all of it in.
Yep.
Patrick, thoughts on Real?
So, like, okay, I never used to be, like, a big fan of hardcore, but, you know, short songs are great as long as it's fast. You know, like, you have all the elements that you need, like high energy. Like, when you hear it, I'd rather I picture myself watching them live and playing this song, and how excited and how, you know, it get the blood pump. You know, it's, you know, makes you want to hit someone or something. You know, but like, it's high energy music and it's great. As long as, like I said, as long as you keep the record going, you know, fast paced. Like, don't let people want to drop off any track. You know, as long as it bleeds into it, and, you know, like, if you're listening to the first track and then all of a sudden you look at your phone or you look at wherever you're listening it to, and you're like, oh shit, I'm already on the fifth track. You know, like, it just all works so well.
Yeah. Yeah,
Chugs,
definitely.
That's the only reason why I'm here, man. It's all for the chugs.
It's all for the dun, 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 dun. No, this song, I definitely love this track because this is, like Fern said, a straight up hardcore track. Yeah. And that is one of my favorite genres. Like Fern said, the "This is real now, motherfucker" call out. Whew. You know, it is, I will agree, it is a very generic hardcore thing, but, you know, I heard that and I was immediately transported back to the dugout. You know, I was in the dugout again. Or I was at the White Rabbit when it still existed. You know what I mean?
When I first heard that, it honestly brought back memories of being at Calaveras in Laredo and, like, hearing hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
The first time. Like, it was a trip hearing that song.
Yeah, dude. So I love the nostalgic feel of this track. But at the same time, it still feels like a very cutting edge track, despite the fact that it is a true and blue
hardcore song.
Hardcore track.
And it's great to be able, like, to have a band that's able to take something that, you know, it seems so generic and still be able to push it a little bit forward, you know, to make you interested in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was about to say, this song stands out in the track listing because an album full of slower, dronier tracks, you know, still immensely heavy, but, you know, this stands out. And it's so amazing how you get a clear distinction between, you know, metalcore and true blue hardcore. Like, you can call out, you know, like, you can listen to the previous song and be like, oh, there's a great metal song or a great metalcore song. And then you hear Real and you're like, yo, that's a great hardcore track. You know, like, you can tell that there's a difference in genre, but they also work it so perfectly that there's still a similarity. You know, it doesn't feel out of place on the record, but it does feel different. And it's a very cool tightrope that they're walking on there. And they make it work. And you know, as short as the song is, I do wish it was a little longer. Actually, it feels shorter than it is because I'm looking at the track listing and it's actually 3 minutes and 7 seconds.
Yeah, it feels way shorter than that.
It doesn't feel that long, but that's because it's just blistering hardcore, just in your face, like get in it.
Quick, 1, 2, 3.
This is real now, motherfucker. And then just this is real now. Punch a motherfucker in the face, and then next song. And that's and that's amazing that it feels it feels so much shorter. But again, love this track right now. They're 3 for 3. They're all bangers up to this point. Next up is my absolute favorite song on the record, actually. So I don't know if this is a spoiler, but this is my favorite song on the entire record. But I'll speak about it at the end here. Bleeding in the Blur. I absolutely love this track, and I would love to know what you guys think about it. Fern, thoughts on Bleeding in the Blur?
First time hearing it is a complete departure from what I was used to hearing from them. But especially Code Orange, considering what I Am King was, huge departure for me. Once I actually gave it a few more listens, it fits in really well with the rest of the record, with that industrial feel. They go for a more like alternative metal kind of vibe for it, but Reba Meyer's vocals just work so well in that song. Like, because she doesn't have like a super clean voice. It's a very rough voice that she has, but it goes so well with that song. And to me, it's one of the more standout tracks. Like, after several more listens to it, it's climbed up as being one of my favorite songs on the whole record. Like, it's such a well-written song. It does have the whole verse chorus kind of deal to it, so it's more accessible. Definitely a much easier song to like take in than the first 3 tracks you hear on this record. But it doesn't mean that it lets you off the hook. Like, it's still pretty heavy overall, and it's just a good track. Like, it's just a really fun song to listen to take a break from all the heaviness you've had so far.
Yeah. Patrick, thoughts on Bleeding in the Rough? Sorry.
So, I mean, like I said, I haven't really listened to the record like all too much, but it's slowed down a lot, and I guess you could say like it's like the pop song on the record. It's the more accessible thing to put out. I would say, but I don't know. For me personally, it feels out of place.
Y'all
I
still
like.
there?
Yeah, I just I want it to be fast. Like, I like that that 1-2 punch of it. It's different, and I'm sure it'll grow on me in like with repeated listens and stuff like that. But I don't know. Like I said, I love industrial metal. It sounds more like it's like a Typo Negative kind of vibe. It just I don't know. It just, for me personally, it doesn't really work all too much. But I mean, hey, what can you do, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's I'm not that I'm saying that it's a bad song or anything like that, because it's
no. Hey, we totally got you, dude.
I'm sorry, Frank. I'm sorry. It's just how we're on opposite sides of the spectrum here.
You fucking jabroni. No, I'm kidding. No, I absolutely love this track. I love this song. The reason why, it's because again, it really showcases Code Orange's ability to create an atmosphere on the record. So this song is not musically the heaviest, and perhaps not even lyrically either, but the atmosphere this song sets up, it's still a very heavy atmosphere. It's still a very heavy tone, a very heavy, a very heavy feeling to it, And I love Reba Meyer's vocals. As Fern mentioned, she's not the most what's the word here? The most technical singer, but what she does absolutely works. It works in the context of the band. It works in the context of the record, and I do feel like a song like this is just, again, flexing that ability to create heaviness without the typical sounds that are heavy. You know, it still feels like a really heavy track, even though it's not.
Without it having
And
to be.
I absolutely love that about it. And it's so weird because I'm not a big fan of industrial music. You know, I don't hate it, but it's definitely not my
I
preferred
don't know,
genre. Like
Frank.
I don't go.
I don't know, Frank. It kind of sounds like you like industrial music, and it's okay to admit it, man.
See, I feel like this album is making me lean into
It's the gateway,
exploring more industrial sounds. You know what I mean? What I've been shown in the past as, you know, or what has been labeled as industrial music that I've heard in the past doesn't do much for me. You know, not knocking it. If people dig it, people dig it, but it's never really been my thing. But the industrial elements that are woven into this album are making me want to give it another chance.
Do it.
And this is not even an industrial record. You know, it's a fucking metalcore album, and it's making me want to listen to industrial music. And I think a big part of that comes from just how good this song is. And this song, Bleeding in the Blur, if there was ever a song that I would bet money on being like a WWE pay-per-view song, it's this one. I picture this being on some WWE show, like 100%. It feels like this is tailor-made for that. But I don't know if it has been yet. I think it has.
You know what? Look,
but I'm not sure
let me look
about
it up.
that. In the meantime, I'm gonna turn the lights on because it's starting to get dark here. Give me 1 second.
This is all natural light outside. It's nice outside. It should probably get dark in a little bit, but all right. Let's see. So, yeah,
Let's find out.
Take Over Brooklyn 3, Bleeding in the Blur.
Has it? There you go. There you go. NXT Takeover Brooklyn
3.
Bleeding in the Blur. I knew it. I knew it.
And
And it's just it's such a good fucking song. It had to be.
as crossover,
You know?
it shows like the versatility of the band. That like they're not just a hardcore band. They're not just a metalcore band. You know, they could do other things.
Exactly. And that's what I really like about this song. And this is absolutely my favorite song on the record. I can talk about it all day, but we've got a couple more songs to go. So next track on the album, The Mud. The Mud.
Oh man. So that's
Fern, let's get into it.
yeah, that song being like right at the halfway point or about the halfway point of the whole record. It's actually a really good choice because it goes from Bleeding in the Blur, still gives you more of that like electronic kind of feel right at the start. It's kind of like, okay, let's take a quick break. You could take a bit of a breather from this ass kicking, and we're gonna come right back into it because the ending of this song, like with the whole breakdown that they have at the end, it's nonstop aggression. It's just pure noisiness towards the end, and it just doesn't let you off the hook anymore. Like the rest of the album doesn't let you off the hook from that point on until you get till about track 9 with Ugly. So I mean, the fact that this at the halfway point, they're like, okay, we're halfway through the record. We'll give you a break, but we're gonna come back in and keep kicking your ass again for another 4 more tracks. So yeah, to me, The Mud is one of my favorite songs for it being so dynamic in the sense that it does all the electronic stuff at the start, and we're just gonna come right back into all the heaviness again.
Yeah.
It's a weird song for me the first time I listened to it, but it's grown on me a lot, and I love this song. I love The Mud a lot.
Dope. Patrick, thoughts on The Mud?
Well, I guess I really don't have like too many thoughts on it because, like, you know, it's a heavy song. You know, I like the name of it, The Mud. Like it sounds like what it's called, right? You know. But yeah, it works as a good midpoint for the album, and the aggression doesn't stop from there, which is perfect because, like I said, it's why I like the record so much. You know, so I was able to listen to it 6 times from like in 24 hours for a reason because you know it all works perfectly. You know, I really like it. Fern,
All right.
Fern, what you got to say? Frank.
Well,
Frank, not Fern. Sorry, you already said your piece, Fern.
I like this song. Fern touches up on a very interesting note that I do enjoy. A thing that I think a lot of artists don't do nowadays, especially more modern artists, if the album is not conceptual in any way, then I think there's very little thought put into the flow of an album. You know, a lot of albums released nowadays do feel more like a collection of tracks.
It's a whole. It's like a song cycle, kind of. Like everything.
Yeah.
Everything works within the context of the project. But if you put a song on like this song on another record of another band, it wouldn't work out because it's too different or something. Because like it just
Exactly. But what I like about this song and Bleeding in the Blur is like how Fern said that this song feels like a reprieve from the heaviness that follows it. So if you think about it in terms of album structure, you get Forever, Kill the Creator, and Real, these crazy heavy, crazy fast songs that you're like rising, right? You're going up on intensity, and then you get Bleeding in the Blur, and then you get the Mud, which are like these like spaces in the middle where you still get that feeling. But like as we've mentioned, the electronics and everything just kind of give you this feeling of like, okay, we're it's like a roller coaster, right? Like
yeah. That's what I was thinking about.
dropping
Like, boom, here comes like, okay,
exactly.
the ride starts and it goes super fast, and then here comes Bleeding in the Blur. It's just like, all right, let's give this
Exactly,
a-
and then you're like right up there right now, and Bleeding in the Blur and this song are like that moment where your cart is like tipping towards that next fall. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that because, like I said, a lot of albums don't do that anymore unless they are conceptual albums. Unless they're telling a story and you're going technically by chronological order on a track. So for them to kind of this couldn't have been like an accidental thing, like, oh, we were just putting the tracks together and it just so happened to come out like this. Like at some point they thought about it and they were like, this would be the best way to go about it, is to create the album this way and set the track listing this way so that you do get that momentary reprieve. You do get that moment of like, gotta catch my breath because it's
like
gonna
nope,
get heavy
boom,
here.
goes back into
It's gonna get right back into it. It's like oh man, I'm trying to find a good simile for a wrestling match. But so this is like when both wrestlers just like hit each other with like a massive elbow and they're both down and you're waiting on the hand count. And
He's like, no.
And right now, right now they're both gonna get up and really go at it. Like this is where they start spamming finishers and stuff. They try to put each other away. So we're at that point right now when they're like reaching for the ropes and trying to get up, and they're just about to destroy each other. So this is that point on the record, and musically, I like this song. I like the instrumental flourishes, the industrial style flourishes that come in every now and again on it. But what really sells me on this track, honestly, it's this place in the track listing. It's at the perfect spot for it to stand out, and I like it. So far they're 5 for 5. Not a dud yet, and I'm excited about that. It's a sign of a great album. So next song coming up, we've got The New Reality. The New Reality. Fern, thoughts on this track?
The New Reality, same as Real, same as Kill the Creator. It's just an onslaught of heaviness that just doesn't stop. It's, again, you already took your break with the Mud. They're like, all right, let's come back in. And again, like you said, they more than likely did this on purpose, especially knowing Code Orange and knowing how they release their music. it's definitely something that they plan out when they release their songs. So going right into the new reality was just, it's a great choice of a song. The heaviness of the guitars, the drums, like down to the vocals, everything about the new reality I really, really enjoy. It's one of the heavier songs that for some reason just doesn't stick with me as much, since there really isn't that like vocal call out. There isn't that one lyric that like keeps you coming back to the song, but it's definitely still one of the better metalcore songs that they have on the record.
All right, Pat, you got a fan in the comments. Would you like to address this real quick?
It's my homie, dude. It's my boy, dude. What's up, Eddie?
All right.
It's working, man. It's working. The people are coming.
Yeah, the one viewer we've got right now. Thanks, Patrick.
It's all for you, Frank.
All right. All right, man. Your thoughts on the new reality?
I mean, I guess I really don't have any thoughts on it. Like, it's just like I said, it's a new record for me. But at this point, usually at this point, it's make or break for a record. And it's sometimes I don't know how most people listen to music, but whenever I listen to it, I like to listen to the entire album. See how all the songs work together. Like how you were saying earlier. Like how everything needs to have a concept nowadays. When sometimes it just, what's wrong with the set of good songs? Where things just don't let up. It kicks your ass the entire time, and it makes you want to come back for more. So still at this point, I'm still really enjoying the record. I really, just thumbs up.
So this is one of the songs. It's not a bad track by any means. Separate from the album, if this was a song by any other band, I'd be like, yo, this is heavy as fuck. I dig it. I like it. But this is one of the songs, I think one of the biggest weaknesses in the metalcore genre, and Code Orange did a good job of minimizing this issue, is that sometimes metalcore songs can just kind of blend together or sound the same at some points. And I feel like I felt it on this song. Not to take away from it, it's a loud fucking song. It's a heavy fucking track. It's so aggressive, and it, as Fern said, it's in the perfect placement right after that reprieve of Bleeding in the Blur and the Mud. It's at that perfect place to set up that next wave of just intensity. But I feel like this is the moment where I'm just kind of like, I would have liked to see something, up until this point, this album has been very innovative within the confines of metalcore. It's really put its own spin on the genre while still working within the rules of the genre. And this is a song that didn't really connect with me. I wouldn't call it pleasant, because it's not supposed to be pleasant. It's supposed to be an ass kicking of a song, and it definitely is. So it's a fun song to listen to. Definitely, it gets the blood pumping the way it's supposed to, but didn't hit me as hard as I wanted it to. I think this is one. I think this was like that one moment on the album where I'm just like, yeah, that happened. It was definitely a song.
So would you say like it's your dud of the record, or is it just not your favorite track on the record?
It's just not my favorite track on the record.
But you don't mind it.
I don't think this album has duds. There's no song on here that I actively dislike, but I think this is the moment where I found the least creativity. This album had already set a pretty high bar with every song that's preceded this song has been very inventive, very creative, very aggressive, and this song was just aggressive. That was really doesn't really have much else going for it. If you take out the aggressiveness, there's not much to it. All of the other songs have something else that kind of makes them stand out in their own way. This wasn't a standout track for me. Not a bad track, but not a standout track.
Look at that.
Yeah, I give it like a one of these.
Half thumb.
Half thumb, just like that.
Yeah, little guy.
This little guy. After that, we've got Spy. Spy. What are your thoughts on Spy, Fern?
So Spy is actually my favorite song on the whole record. It, for some reason, that opening guitar right into those drums it's so brutal. Like, that song is absolutely devastating the whole time. I get that like all the other songs do the same, but just something about that opening riff and those opening drums just keep making me come back to listen to that song over and over and over and over. And also the ending lyrics, the call out that you have with the whole die spy, die, you're just a fucking spy, like just those call outs, the breakdown, the intro. Again, it's an ass kicking just like the first 3 songs on the album, but for some reason this one just makes me come back and listen to it more just for that opening riff. That opening riff alone hooked me the whole time I was listening to the record.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Sorry.
Patrick, thoughts on Spy?
It is also my favorite song on the record. Like, when I was on my way home, I was listening to the album, and I think it's pretty great whenever you're listening to a song and you look at wherever you're listening to it and you're like, well, what's the name of the song? You know, like, I need to know the name of this song so I can return to it later, because like, if I'm going to show this, like, to show this record off to someone, this will probably be the track that I'd show them. You know, like, dude, you should check this out. Like, it's fucking heavy. Like, it's going to kick your ass, you know. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's out of the entire listen that I had, every time that the track stood out.
All right, yeah. So, I was gonna say, I feel like any doubts about how the second leg of this album was gonna go that I got from the new reality were definitely quelled with Spy. You know, it goes back to that winning formula that they had in the first 3 tracks. It's heavy. That intro did captivate me. I did have that same moment that Patrick did, where I looked at the phone and I was like, wait, which one's this one? I gotta make sure to talk about this one.
Check that real quick.
It's definitely my second favorite on the record. If Bleeding in the Blur wasn't on this album, this would be the track. And we've got some more love for Patrick on the comments, dude.
That's the homie, dude. You know who that is?
Who is that?
Is that a Let me see it. Let me see who it is. But hey, dude, like I said, man, that's what I did this for you because I love you, man.
If only this had been the episode you were scheduled to be on.
Right, but no, dude. Thankfully, because I mean, I that album's really cool, you know, because I love the way it sounds. But this is a little bit better, I would say. So, I don't think that if I was doing that episode, could I talk about wrestling? Probably not, but I can now.
Probably not. But yeah, no, this song definitely. It was edged out by Bleeding in the Blur. Had that song not been on this record, Spy would have been my favorite song on the album. It is the perfect comeback track for this album, because the new reality wasn't really doing it for me, but this song coming right after that made me believe in this album again and really powered me to go through the rest of it. And I love it, man. It's a damn good track. Yeah, man. Don't have much to say about that. I absolutely love it.
Kicked your ass, man. And that's the great thing about it.
Really did.
Now, Frank, let me ask you a question. So, was this the point of the record that you decided that, like, you know, to separate it, or during what track was that?
It was after New Reality, actually. It was after the New Reality that I was. I really had to take a moment and just like stop, because it happens so often to so many albums that they can't stick the landing. You know what I mean? you can get like an excellent first half on a record, and then you reach that halfway point. The halfway point is the make it or break it point on every album, you know. And once you get there, and if the middle of the album doesn't really stack up to the expectations that preceded it, I am very prone to drop an album at that point.
Should have been an EP.
So I feel like Bleeding in the Blur and the Mud are a perfect halfway point, because I was like, yes, I'm hooked. I will definitely finish this album. I'm ready to just go through the second half. But then the New Reality hit, and again, it's not something that I hated, but I didn't love it. And that to me was like a scary thought, because I'm just like, oh, here's a track I don't love. Is the rest of the album going to be songs that I don't love, that I'm just going to be like, yeah, they're cool, but
makes sense.
If I'm just like, am I just going to go back to the first half of this record every time I listen to it? You know, and it was after I heard the New Reality that those thoughts started to creep in. And that's when I was just like, I need to take a break, because I need to listen to this whole album. Like, for the sake of this podcast, I do need to listen to this entire album. So I'm going to gather my thoughts a little bit and then come back into it. And even after repeated listens, I had the same feeling. And I think that's just a testament to how good every other track on this album is, because the New Reality is not a bad track. It isn't. But the fact that it's not as good as every other song makes it feel like it's bad.
Yeah, it makes
it makes it sound bad by comparison. That song. What's up?
Like, it makes
so you know,
once you hear the New Reality, but Spy brings it back. Oh my god.
It really does. It really does. So yeah, so I know I went on a little rant there, but to answer your question, Patrick, it was after the New Reality that I thought I needed to take a break.
It's a good thing to know, because like you know, you said it. You didn't want to be disappointed, because everything was so great up until that point. So you take the break, you start it up again. You know, you have all these expectations for it, and then you go into a song like that, and it just fucking boom kicks your ass, and you're like, okay, awesome. Like, let's just keep going with this.
Yeah, exactly. So that we've got a comment here, Fern. I don't know if you want to take a look at this. I was hearing you just fine, but we've got some feedback here.
I'm gonna get some more light real quick. Give me a sec.
Yeah. So the boy's gonna go get some light. You can see him.
Volume.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's a little bit better. I didn't want to distort anything or make it too loud.
Yeah, no, I think you sound good now. David, in the comments, does Fern sound better now? Or, is that cool? Should he raise it a little more?
Turn it up more.
And while you're here, how do the rest of us sound? We didn't check levels, because this is a very professional podcast.
It's the way it should be, man. It's the way it should be.
It's the way it should be.
Because look, technically, if they can't hear us, they have to put everything closer to their ears, so then they'll really listen to us.
That's true. That's true.
So who's good at marketing now?
I respect that.
Hey, man.
What I also respect is the next track on this album. How's that for a transition? How's that for a second?
Wow, look at you.
Look at me.
You crazy.
Next song. We've got Ugly. Fern, thoughts on this track?
I actually really enjoy this one, and I hate to say it, but I feel to me it's like a better Bleeding in the Blur. It's not as catchy as Bleeding in the Blur, but for one of the softer songs on the record, it hooks me every time. Like it really always keeps me coming back for more. Spy and Ugly, both tracks, I can come back to this record, come back and listen to both over and over and over, and not get tired of it. Like I could just put those two songs into a playlist and just let me listen to those for a whole day, and I'll be perfectly fine. It's just one of the softer songs for sure. Has a more industrial feel, has a more alternative metal feel to it, but it's still heavy as can be. They still, again, it's non-stop heaviness with this whole record. So the fact that they were able to mix in both the sounds that they've had so far, to me, is still is really really well done. Not a lot of bands can do that nowadays without it sounding kind of corny. Whenever they do the softer bits with the heavier bits, and it sounds like two completely different songs, they make this work really well and make it sound like one cohesive track. And I just really love the song Ugly a lot.
All right. Patrick, thoughts on Ugly?
Well, when I heard the song, guess what it made me feel? Ugly. It made me feel ugly. It's just like, so, like I said with the other track, Leading the Blur, I'm just not a super huge fan of the softer, like slower stuff, like love industrial, but just if you're going to make it work, I think it should be a little bit more. So, like, yeah, it's like whatever. It's not saying once again that it's a bad track or anything like that. It's just not to my personal preference when I'm listening to something like this, where, like I said, brutality, and then you go to something a little bit softer and more mellow, and like if it's not at that level, then it just kind of slows everything down. And I think since it's already getting closer to the end, I don't think there needs to be a slowdown for it, rather than like, when you're in a car, you go really fast. Like it's like you're taking turns, and you're slowing down a little bit just so you don't crash, just so you could have like a little bit of a safer side to it, Like, yeah, it shows the diversity, but I think it's, I would say playing it more safe rather than just not sticking to what they know, but what works really well, especially in the context of the record.
Okay. I will disagree with you in the fact that I'm actually a fan of Code Orange when they slow down or when they kind of clean it up a little bit, because this is not by any means like a clean song either. But I do like how they're able to show off. Hold on.
You're all right. Don't die, please.
Gary Follow-On. Ugh, that's what happened to me right now.
You're all right, baby boy?
Yeah. I'm a fan of when they when a band can show off how dynamic they can be. And this is definitely one of those flexes, the tracks that have preceded it. But those industrial elements that, again, I'm typically not the biggest fan of industrial music, but this album, that it's not even an industrial album, is doing a really good job of selling me on that particular sound.
Personally, it sounds to me that you're a big fan.
For someone who says they don't like industrial metal,
right?
I'm starting to think you love industrial metal.
The things that you like most about this record are the industrial elements of it. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, and that isn't lost on me. I get that, but I think it's just a testament to how good this album is. Name me some industrial acts, and I'll tell you if I like them or not. Like 100% honest.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you like Nine Inch Nails, and like, I know you.
I don't.
You don't really?
I don't.
Okay, I mean, do you like Marilyn Manson and like KMFDM or like Ministry?
My girlfriend loves Marilyn Manson. I can take him or leave him.
I can see that.
Huh?
But I can see that. But you know what? Look, I know you're pop punk to the core, man. But to me, I can definitely see you being an industrial goth. I'm just saying.
Let me put on my raver dreads on real quick.
Please do.
Just gotta give it some time. Let it grow on you, man.
Yeah, man. Like, it sounds like the right lifestyle.
Especially
right?
9 Inch Nails. Like, go to some of their earlier EPs, listen to 9 Inch Nails, and you'll get some of the same
Yeah, I mean,
vibes that
You
that
hear the
Code Orange is
influences.
giving out. Yeah, you'll hear the
yeah,
influence that
like
Code Orange has from Nine Inch Nails.
like don't get me wrong. I've given them a shot. I think I've heard multiple songs from multiple eras in Trent Reznor's discography, and it doesn't click with me. Like I don't think it's bad, but there's definitely a disconnect between me and the industrial genre. But this record, man, this fucking record,
It's changing your
it
mind.
huh?
It's changing your mind,
changing my mind. It's definitely changing my mind. It's definitely making me want to go back and see what I'm not seeing right now. You know what I mean? What is it about this album that made those elements work for me that don't work for me
With
in
Nine Inch
industrial
Nails.
albums?
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, this song, in my opinion, gets it right. And I really enjoy the song. I like it. It's definitely a standout track in the album. This album is 11 tracks, and 3 out of 11 are already like fucking bangers. Like certified bangers. So that's almost like a third of the record. That I can definitely go back to. So far so good. Next up we've got No One Is Untouchable. Fern, thoughts on the track?
No One Is Untouchable. It does the same thing that the New Reality did for me, and it's kind of one of those songs that's just heavy for the sake of being heavy, and it doesn't stand out amongst all the other heavier tracks that are on this. And granted, it is one of the heavier songs on the record. It still just doesn't compare to stuff like Real, Spy, Forever. It just doesn't stand out for me. And it's just one of the songs, again, same as the New Reality. You could remove one of those two songs, and you really wouldn't change much about the record for me. The intro to No One Is Untouchable, I absolutely love the way it comes in with the drum fill and with the bass. It's super good. It kind of hooks you in, but the rest of the song kind of falls flat after that, and it just, again, heavy for the sake of being heavy. Just doesn't really do much for me compared to all the other heavier metalcore tracks that are on this.
Okay. Okay. Patrick?
It's whatever, like it's just there. It's like I said, it's not. It doesn't give you the same feeling that you get with other songs because it is just there. But I mean, hey, it's fun. It's heavy. It works.
Yeah.
That's why you say like if you were to take it out, it'd be fine. If you were to put it anywhere else, it would work fine because it's just it is what it is, and it. I mean, it's pretty far down in the track listing, but so yeah, I guess if there would be a dud, not compared to the other songs, but like it didn't really do much, and it was just whatever.
Yeah, so I do agree with those thoughts when it comes to No One Is Untouchable. It is heavy for the sake of being heavy. Again, this is a case of transplant this song out of this record, put it on another record, standout track anywhere else. But when you've got such a, front heavy load on this album, it does kind of give you that fizzle out feeling of like you've heard this done and better so earlier in the record. This is where I would appreciate a little bit more diversity on this song. A little, like a little twist here and there. Do a little something different to make this track more impactful. It's fun. It's heavy. Got me pumping my fists. But is it one that I will go back to? Not on purpose. I'm not gonna search up this song on the track listing and put it up. When it plays with the rest of the album, I won't skip it. It's a good song, but Definitely not one that captures my attention. I do prefer this one to the New Reality though, um, because of the intro to it. But other than that, it's not it's not my favorite. I'll put it. Yeah, this is middle thumbs right there. Just thumbs in the
I'll
middle.
put it in that category also.
And then after that, we've got. Okay, I have an opinion about this song, but I give mine at the end, and I'll ask you guys if you agree. Next up, we've got "Hurt Goes On." Thoughts on this
The
track?
Hurt Goes On. That song should have honestly been the closing track of the record. It should have ended there. The hurt will go on, the end will never come. That last line should have been it for the record. It is such a killer track too. Start to finish, it just doesn't let up. It's pure heaviness. Again, it's what the rest of the album has. For some reason, for it being a heavy song, it still stands out more than No One Is Untouchable or The New Reality for me. But my God, it should have just ended there. This album should have ended on this 10th song, and it would have been a killer way to end this whole record.
Agreed.
It's
Yeah.
just a great ending for the whole record.
100%. But before I state my opinion, Patrick, what do you think?
The exact same thing. Like, end the record strong. End it the way you began it. I'm not a big fan of the closing track. It just doesn't do much for me. But this, it does work. It's fucking heavy. It sends you off the way you started. And if you were to put the record on a repeat cycle, it would work perfectly. It would sync up together, and it would just kick your ass and just keep it going. Vicious cycle.
Yeah. So the super controversial opinion I was alluding to was that "Hurt Goes On" should have closed out this album. It is the perfect closer. The way Patrick brought up the cyclical nature of it. You start where you end where you began. It starts heavy, it ends heavy. Everything about it is it had closer written all over it. When another song came up, I thought my Spotify was just playing another track of another record, and I saw, and it was still the same album. And I wouldn't go as far as to say I dislike the closer, but this should have been it, 100%. This should have been the closer. I think the song that is the closer should have been like an interlude somewhere near.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking in my head right now.
Definitely.
But that being said, let's get into the closing track, Dream 2. Thoughts, Franny?
Dream 2, like you said, it should have been more of an interlude. It would have worked much better in the context of, let's give you the bleeding blur, let's give you Dream 2, and we'll throw in the mud. And we can go with the rest of the record from there. It would have been a good break, a good departure from everything you've heard so far. But for it to kind of end on such a somber note, considering Dream 2, and it's a much slower track, it's a much softer song to end the album in. It doesn't end on a high note like you'd expect it to end. Compared to, say, again, the Hurt Goes On. Hurt Goes On, sick way to end the record. You could play the record back to front, and it would still make sense. It would still give you an ass-kicking, still give you a break, and come back for another ass-kicking. But for it to give you an ass-kicking break, ass-kicking into kind of a somber, I'm just going to let you rest now, it works in the sense that it gives you a rest. It's kind of like you've already had your ass beat. Let's just give you a bit of a break after this heavy record. But in the same sense, it kind of falls flat compared to the rest of the record, compared to how you'd expect a record like this to end. It falls flat for me. And to me, it's the only song on here, and I hate to say it, but it's the only song to me that's a dud compared to the rest of the album. And again, compared to the rest of the album, that's still a really good song, because the rest of the album is so well, musically and lyrically, it's so well written. For Dream 2 to just kind of come in and fall flat, it's pretty. It just doesn't do it for me. It's not for me.
Wow. Okay. Patrick?
It's a hard agree on everything on what you said, Fern, completely, and on what you said, Frank, like it, everything about the song screams interlude. Like, I mean, it's called Dream 2, the way that the song title is. It just seems like something that would go in the middle, you know, like you said earlier, it's a roller coaster ride the entire time, and I don't want this roller coaster to just like, you know, for the last minute or so just to be cruising, you know, like what's the fun in that? You know, like this is a high octane, you know, fun ride. Like you get your punches, you get a little bit of slow down, but after a really heavy song and a great, what would have been a closer, to go into this is just, you know, it really doesn't work. And I mean, I'm not saying that the album ends badly or that the song's bad or anything like that, because it is, you know, had any other band had done it, you know, everyone would have been like, oh, this is super great, you know, but it's just, it's whatever. Like I could care less about listening to it. And if the record ended on the 10th track, perfect, but not here.
All right. Okay. So I will start with the positives. I think the thing that hurts this track the most is definitely its placement, because put in a more suitable place, I would be more comfortable in saying what I'm about to say, which is that I love this track. Reba, again, stealing the show vocally, and she does it by, you know, again, not being the most technically profound singer, but she makes up for it. Like her tone, her demeanor, everything about it just makes the song sound so sinister, even though, you know, it's such a weird mix emotionally and tonally. And I absolutely love it. I love that about the record. The placement is what really hurts it, because the 10th track should have been the ending track.
For sure.
Definitely. But I think the biggest question is, where do you put the song? Because I don't like the idea that you mentioned of putting it right after Bleeding in the Blur. And the only reason why I don't like that is because I feel like, again, I think everything about the way this album is set up is, you know, calculated to some degree.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think they did want to keep the instances where you hear Reba take center stage vocally a little bit spread apart. If you hear her singing lead vocals in two songs back to back, it kind of loses its not its appeal, but it loses its what was the word I'm looking for? It loses its gravity a little bit if you have her singing two songs back to back. So
Yeah.
as much as it fits best in the middle, where do you put it so that it's not too close to Bleeding in the Blur, or in a place where it can contextually line up with being so close to Bleeding in the Blur? In my head, when you guys were talking about it, I thought about, for a minute, I was like, what if this was the album opener? But then I realized that wouldn't work either, because the opener works with this heavy fucking opener. So it's so weird that, you know, a song that is this good, because it really is a really good song, a song this good, it doesn't seem like it has a place on this album. And it's really, really sad, because I love it. I think it works really well within the themes of the album, you know, the themes, and by that I mean, you know, musically, lyrically, and all of that. It definitely fits into the aesthetic of the record and what it's supposed to be, but I don't see where it fits, you know, as far as a song in the set list. And that makes me really sad, because that's definitely a song that deserves to be on a record. So it's definitely a frustrating song, just because I feel like a little bit more thought should have been put into where it was going to go. I think they wanted it to be a closer because, you know, it does follow that typical album closer formula where, you know, the last song on the album kind of wraps everything up. And a lot of bands do employ the somber song at the end. Like one of my favorite albums is No Closer to Heaven by the Wonder Years. And they ended on an acoustic track. They ended on the title track, No Closer to Heaven. Or, I was talking, I'm a big fan of Jeff Rosenstock. His former band, Bomb the Music Industry, have this album called Vacation, which I absolutely love. And the ending track also kind of fizzles out. It ends on this kind of slow, drony atmosphere. So ending on a soft note isn't unheard of, and
Yeah, definitely.
when done well, it's great. When you do it right, it's absolutely perfect. I think Put Up or Shut Up by All Time Low also ends on the slowest song, right?
It does. It does.
I think it ends on what's that song called? I forgot. But it ends on the slowest song, and so it definitely feels that's what they were going for. They wanted to end it
on a somber note.
On a somber note, but I don't think they were counting on the 10th track, No One Is Untouchable. They weren't counting on that song feeling like such a perfect closer.
Yeah. But I guess
that it was so in need Dream 2. And I think that's what hurts it the most.
If you think about it go for it.
No, go ahead.
If you think about it in context, I think the only reason why it doesn't work out is think about Pinkerton. From beginning to end, that record's great, right? It starts with Tired of Sex and it ends on Butterfly. So that record, Butterfly, it's sweet. It's a pretty song after all these harder rocking tracks. But I think that Code Orange, it's too heavy. It's too heavy to end on something like that. Use the acoustics when the acoustics are necessary because it works with the music that you're playing. But on a somber, softer track, when compared to everything else that's come before, even on the softer tracks on the album, it's completely out of place. It's a B-side. It's a bonus track. And that's a hot take.
The deluxe edition as a bonus track and call it a day. I definitely, I do agree with that. I do feel like, they gave you moments that almost make this feel somewhat compatible with the track, Bleeding in the Blur, The Mud, some of the more electronic passages throughout the album. But those little moments weren't enough to justify a slow song at the end. It's a very dynamic record. It is a very varied record, but a song like that was definitely out of its range as a closer.
Because even if you go and listen to their newest record, Underneath, and they do end it on one of the softer songs that they've written, it still feels like it falls in line with the whole record. Considering it starts with Swallowing the Rabbit Hole, which is hands down their heaviest song that they've ever written, in my opinion, down to ending with the song like Underneath that is more of a stereotypical, almost like a stadium rock kind of song, something that you'd hear at a football game, hear at a wrestling event. And the song itself, it ends the record in a really good note because there is a really badass breakdown that ends it, comes back into the chorus, which has both the screaming vocals, has the clean vocals, has a guitar solo in the back. It just has everything meshed into one where it works well. Whereas Dream 2, for some reason, it just doesn't mesh well with the rest of the record to say, hey, we're going to end here. Whereas The Hurt Goes On, we're going to end here and you're going to love this ending a lot. I don't know. Dream 2, again, it just doesn't fall right for me as an ending kind of song. Like you said, it should have just been a B-side, should have just been a bonus track. Yeah. But again, Code Orange doesn't really do that. Code Orange is very straightforward with their music releases.
Yeah.
So maybe they just added this as hey, this is a last minute kind of ad that we're going to do to the album.
If that's what it was, that makes me even angrier because this song deserves some thought. It's truly a great song. I actually, like I said, were it not for its placement on this record, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable saying that I love this song. I love it. I wish it was set up better. I wish it was in a better place on the album so that it could be fully appreciated. But yeah, they kind of fucked up on its placement, and it hurts the song, unfortunately. But all right, well, we've gone through every track on the album, and we've got about 10 minutes left on the podcast. So what we're going to do now, closing thoughts and a little bit of small talk. And if we've got anything to plug, floor is yours. But for now, closing thoughts on the record. After we've gone through every track, Fern, are your feelings still the same on the album as they were when you came in? Or, did hearing differing opinions affect the way you do you look at any of the tracks a little differently? Or, how are you feeling after we've had this whole discussion?
Yeah, so I've listened to this album nearly 3 years now, but this is the first time I've ever gone into it a little more objectively. So instead of going in as a hardcore fan of this band, I decided to go into it with the more objective mindset. Let's actually break apart this whole record. Let's actually dissect it. Let's actually listen to it. It kind of gives you a new perspective on the record itself. To me, I still love this record. It's still my favorite Code Orange record that they've ever done. Again, with songs like Forever, Spy, my favorite song on the whole record, Hurt Goes On being the perfect closer for this. I still love everything about this, and the parts that I still dislike, being Dream 2 as the closer, it's still there. Even looking at it objectively and not as a fan, it still feels the same way that it did when I first listened to it. And to me, the fact that I can listen to this record and still feel like it's a brand new listen every time and still search for new stuff to listen to in it, to me, it's just a testament for how great this record is. It always makes me want to find more sounds. It makes me want to find more guitar stuff in the background, vocals in the background, and actually play with it some more and take more time with it. So again, I love this record a lot. The closer should have been The Hurt Goes On. And that's really all I have to say for that album.
Are we all good here?
Yeah, we're good here. Fern, that was beautiful, Fern. Let me just tell you. All right.
That is I like that opinion. I'm glad that that you love it the way you do. That's great. Pat, I know you came into this one kind of blind. So your initial thoughts, do they hold up? Does listening to a seasoned fan here like Fern, did that kind of help you paint some of these songs in a different light? How do you feel now that we've gone track to track?
So it's great actually. It's like I said, I'd listened to the record before. I didn't really give it much thought, but going into it, where I was supposed to listen to it and give my thoughts on tracks, I was able, to truly appreciate the music a lot more than I did once before. It's like whenever you listen to like any sort of band and you're like, oh, this kind of sucks. And then you listen to it like a year, 2 years later, and you're like, holy shit, like how have I not been listening to this entire time? So it's great. I love the record. Hearing what you guys had to say, after we're done with this, I'm going to go back and listen to the record. I think it's great. I listened to that one. I listened to I Am King. I liked I Am King a little bit more just because it was a little bit heavier, but I think this record's going to be a grower for me, and I think the more I listen to it, the more I'm going to like it, and the more opinion I'm going to have on each track. So if you guys ask me in 2-3 weeks, I'm sure we could have a much better conversation on everything, but I loved it. I see why the record got as much praise as it did, and why it was on every, music outlet, and why, why they're getting so popular, why WWE wanted them to make songs for them, how some of their songs sound tailor-made for that, because they're just great songs. If any other band puts these songs out, they'd be fucking hits. It works out. Well, also, what Fern said, closer, not so great, but you can always just take it off the track list.
And one thing I did forget to mention, which I feel like I should have mentioned a long time ago, definitely well-deserved Grammy nomination that they got for that record. Because to see a
Yeah.
hardcore band like that get a Grammy nomination was actually
That's
pretty
fucking
wild
crazy.
for me.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No. This is one of the most dynamic records in modern metalcore. I appreciate the fuck out of that. To get a Grammy nod on a genre that has been kind of ignored or just kind of thrown by the wayside because of his reputation of the Warped Tour metalcore era, which they weren't bad bands, but they weren't the most dynamic, the most original, things like that. So this was an album, and Code Orange as a whole was a band that has always been on my radar. I loved I Am King, but I've said this before in the podcast, and I'm always very lazy when it comes to listening to new music. Part of the reason why I started this podcast is to give myself a sense of urgency when it comes to listening to something new. So I had heard Forever when it dropped, and myself as much as I did this time around. I heard it once, liked it, and just kind of forgot about it. Coming back to it, I do appreciate it a lot more. I do appreciate that it's making me rethink my entire stance on a completely different genre. Like it's about industrial. So overall,
Bless
Sorry
you,
about that.
child. No, you're fine.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, my friend.
Overall, great record. Only one major dud for me, which is The New Reality, and a song that could arguably be a dud, but I don't want to call it a dud because what hurts it's its placement.
Just say it.
Is Dream 2, but it's mostly all bangers. It's aggressive as hell, but it's not all that repetitive. It does have a lot of a variety. It is a very dynamic album. It leaves you guessing a lot. You don't really know what's coming next. From track to track, and I appreciate that because, again, going back to the scene days of metalcore, it was
God.
it's the biggest weakness of the genre was how formulaic it was, how everything sounded very much the same, and you could tell, just seeing a band's name, you knew what they were going to sound like. There was that joke of if the band was, if the band name followed this formula, verb, the noun, if any band followed that name formula, you knew what you were going to get, like right off the bat. So again, the fact that there's a new wave of bringing more variety, more real aggressiveness to the genre, it's great. And I feel that Code Orange is definitely at the forefront of this new wave of metalcore. And this album really cements their place and as like flag bearers of new metalcore. And I really enjoyed this album. I'm glad you chose it. I'm glad I went back and listened to it more because there was a lot of stuff I missed out on, the first time I listened to it. And hearing it repeatedly, hearing it with a critical ear, actually made me enjoy it a lot more. Instead of finding more flaws, which is honestly, that's what I thought was going to happen when you suggested the record. I thought I was going to end up liking it less because, mentally you're kind of conditioned to think like that about metalcore. Mm-hmm. But then I ended up realizing like there's a lot more to this record that I love than I don't love. So my co-host Arnold couldn't be here, but he sent me a note with his thoughts on the record. so we could have him be with us in spirit. So this is from the desk of Arnoldo Treviño. I believe this album surpasses I Am King because the band evolved their sound into something that is close to groundbreaking, but it does not quite break the ground as I thought it would, because they didn't really settle to one consistent sound for the entire album. The album is 34 minutes, which to me being Arnold, is short, sweet, and does not overstay its welcome. It leaves me wanting more. This album strayed off from becoming a basic aspect of metalcore, hardcore album, and added elements that fans of industrial, alternative metal, and digital core, such as Atari Teenage Riot, can enjoy. Some songs sadly seem to circle back to the sound of I Am King as differently. Our package is different because they added a small element halfway through the song or a little blip in here or there in the song, which to me feels like they are playing it safe a little. I like that this album is bringing change to the metalcore genre with some risk and obvious outside influence, but the thing that didn't change is how heavy it is, and he rates it an 85 out of 100. So that was
Nice.
Arnold's thoughts. So we've got about a minute left on the pod. We can go 5 more minutes, and I'm doing this for plugs. If you guys have anything you want to plug, anything you want to let the people know about, Fern, you're kind of making moves in the music scene right now. So any plugs for you, man?
All I really got to plug is my band, Moving Around. Check us out. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just look up Moving Around. We're a pop punk band. Our guitarist hates it when we call it this, but we do have a few easy core influences in there from time to time. There are some like chugs, there are some breakdowns. But if you just enjoy pop punk as a whole, any music like that, go ahead and check us out. Give us a listen. We just dropped a new music video. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube. It's for our song Not Me Anymore, which is the title track off of our newest EP also. So if you can, check us out. Give us a like. Stream our music. We really appreciate it.
All right. Cool. Patrick, you fucking jabroni. Any plugs? Anything you want to let the people know about?
Well, I don't really have anything going on, but if I could plug my best friend's band, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
My best friend says that he plays drums for this band called Granite Hands that are really, really cool. It's kind of like a math rock project. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them.
Super good band.
You should definitely check them out. They have an EP that came out in January, I believe. It's fucking dope. Cesar, like I said, the drummer, he's been my best friend for a long time, and I think this is the best playing that I've ever heard him do, and it's really great. So you should definitely check it out if you haven't already, and show them some love.
All right.
And to Friends Band too.
No lie, if you haven't, check out Granite Hands. They are absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
There you go, guys. Granite Hands, Moving Around. Check them out. And also, give this podcast a like and, subscribe to us. We'll be letting you guys know where you can hear the audio only format. So, if you missed this today or if you want to listen again, you don't have to, just look up the video. We'll be on streaming platforms soon. If you have any suggestions for any albums that you would like for us to talk about, message the page here, Hindsight 2020. And, you might end up hearing us talk about an album that you love. So, yeah, do that. Stay safe. We love you. Bye.